ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। So we'll continue from where we left, but I'll try to recapitulate uh, the topic that we are discussing today is our alternate Saturday class on Vedanta and the science of human possibilities. So every alternate Saturday we discuss Vedanta in the sense Upanishads, which explore all the human possibilities. We have physical possibilities, life skills, the mental capacities or mental possibilities which help us to develop certain skills with which we can earn a livelihood. But we found that Vedanta believes that there are more possibilities that we can possibly explore. And the idea of dividing human personality into three distinct bodies, the gross body, which is also known as Annamaya Kosha, we discussed that. Several Upanishads discuss it. And the physical possibilities are within the scope of this Annamaya Kosha. Our body can be imagined as something which is made of three distinct bodies, as I said. The gross body, which is Sthula Sharira, the Sukshma Sharira. The Sthula Sharira also comprises of the pranas or the five life forces. The classification of these five life forces have been done in a very scientific way to cover all the possible forces that make a living being physically capable of performing several actions. Prana, Apana, Samana, Vyana and Udana. So we'll not discuss. We have spent a lot of time discussing the Sthula Sharira. Then in our previous class, we discussed what the subtle body is. The subtle body comprises, as I said, of the mind and also the subtle sense organs, which help us to it can be found especially in the dream experience that we have. Every day we are shuttling between waking experiences, our dream experiences, and dreamless or deep sleep. So these are the three levels that we keep migrating from one state to the other. That's how human personality acts in this world. So in that personality, the Annamaya Kosha is predominantly experienced in the waking state. In the dream state, as we discussed earlier, the experiencer lives in a subtle body where he creates his dream experiences using the experiences he had while he was waking. So many of them are in the form of memories, conscious or unconscious memories. But most of the memories are not under his control. They are randomly connected to different emotions. That is why we don't find any coherence in our dream experiences. Like in our waking experience, every time we get up and see the waking world as we left it when we went to a dream state and deep sleep state, we see almost the same world. But in dream state, the question may be asked, why does the dream world change? In fact, it doesn't change because most of the experiences in the dream state are unconscious experiences based on all the different memories that are stored. Some of the memories become prominent And it is only when the memories, some of the emotions or some of the feelings get attached to those cognitive memories which one had during the waking state and which are lying dormant. They are not, they are expressed only, some of the experiences or the samskaras, as we say, are experienced only when some emotion gets attached. For example, you had a very, when you have nightmares, it is some fear lurking somewhere which gets connected to the wrong cognition or wrong experience. And then you have a strange experience which you cannot experience in the waking world. It happens only in the dream world. Fantastic things happen. The reason being that in the waking experience, you are consciously seeing things. The sense organs are fully conscious. At least even if one is absent-minded, the more or less there is some coherence in the waking world. Your emotions, you consciously attach certain emotions with certain people, certain environment, and all those things, and that gives you some kind of experience which is legitimate. Whereas when you go into dream state, the problem is the emotions that you have, the emotional memories and the cognitive memories that we discussed about this in our previous class, they get mixed up. And that is why some fear lurking somewhere, the emotion of fear, the emotion of love, or the emotion of anxiety, worry, and all those things, they keep on attaching themselves to different memories, which are also experiences, but they are cognitive experiences. So, according to Patanjali's yoga, in the dream experience or even in the waking experience, a samskara or a deep impression is formed only if an emotion is attached to it, which is known as kleshas. This is a very important point to remember, that the whole of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, they have classified all our experiences and the impact they create not only during the waking state, but its potentiality in the dream state to arise depends on which klesha or which emotion is attached to that cognitive thought. So that's why they say if you just witness the whole world without any emotion, just as a witness with a sakshi bhava, then there is less chance that those experiences are recorded deep in your unconscious mind. And they rarely, though they may be potential, they are weak enough and they do not disturb us. But if certain cognitive experiences are experienced with lot of feeling, lot of kleshas, as I said, the three basic kleshas which decide how strong our experience will be is raga, dvesha, and abhinivesha, fear. These are the three fundamental uh, kleshas which, according to Patanjali, he has very nicely classified all our waking experiences and also which lead to dream experiences into three basic broad categories. He says either you like a thing or you dislike a thing. If you like it, it is raga. You are attracted towards that. Any object or any experience. It's a pleasant experience because you like it. Then we have hatred for things that we don't like. So that is known as dvesha. Dvesha means hatred or some kind of irritation you feel when experiences which you don't like come to you. So now the stronger these kleshas, according to Patanjali, the stronger is the samskara that is formed, which results in either nightmares or good dreams. Even good dreams, if the emotion is good, if there is a wonderful, many people have very good dreams. But most of the nightmares, if you analyze, it is not because uh, because most of your memories were tainted or were colored by one strong emotion. You might have seen a situation, but then either you liked that situation, there was an extreme like or extreme hatred for that. So that's why Patanjali says either you just have a balanced attitude, don't have too many likes and dislikes. Try to just observe everything, accept everything, and don't allow any of your emotion to get attached. If you do, or if one does that, it goes deep into the unconscious and it's difficult to extricate. And they are waiting there. As soon as you go into the dream state, these cognitive experiences, which would have died down if you were neutral. If you were neutral, then many experiences happen. Most of them you don't recollect. Only those experiences which were attached to a deeply, you may say, emotional, raga or dvesha, like or dislike. Or the third klesha, which he says, is abhinivesha, the fear. Fear, uh, clinging to life, that is the literal meaning. Clinging to life means, according to Patanjali, all our fears have one basic, supreme fear which is at the background, and that is fear of death. So, fear of death gives rise to our little fears. Fears of losing money, fears of losing prestige, everything somehow or the other, Patanjali found, is connected to the survival instinct. So, the fear of, or the clinging to life that every human being exhibits, to the extent that fear increases, the experiences, the cognitive experiences which we gather in through our different senses, we see certain things, we hear certain things, but if they are attached with that fear, emotion of fear, then they go deep within, then it is very difficult to not to they definitely will appear with lot of force during our dream state. That is why they say if the waking state is fully under our control and we are more or less we have a attitude of we reduce the kleshas, we don't have very strong likes or dislikes or fears, and we accept life as it is by controlling our mind and the senses during the waking state, will result in a much better dream experience. So, out of that point we discussed last time, out of the impressions that are stored in the subtle body, from extensive waking experiences tainted or tinted with emotions, he experiences, there is a likelihood of those experiences recurring in the dream state. Therefore, he sees subtle objects which are not existing, but he creates them. That is why there is a word that is used in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. He says, which says, when he dreams, when any person dreams, he takes away little of the impressions of this all-embracing world, the waking state. Himself puts the gross body aside. You have to remember that in that dream state, though your autonomous functions of the body are continuing, the breathing, heartbeat, and all those things, but the consciously, you're not conscious of the body when you are dreaming. There's a dream body. He says, the Upanishad says, the self creates a dream body with dream objects, with a dream environment, and the self illumines that dream world, which for the time being is as real as the waking state. This is a very important thing you have to remember. But one point we made it was very clear that the soul itself by itself does not experience this waking or dream state. It is only in association with the mind. That is why the whole of Patanjali's yoga is how to control the mind, both gross as well as subtle, or the buddhi, or the finer mind. So in the dream state, the mind, which is the principal component of the subtle body. Now we come to the subtle body. It is different from the gross body because gross body might have the sense organs, but they need something to connect with so that the experiencer, the self, can experience the world, either in waking state or in a deep sleep state. The sense organs, the subtle senses are active. The gross senses may be active, and they are definitely active during the waking state, but when you go to the dream state, you may say, my eyes are closed, everything, all the senses are practically shut down, except some of the basic life functions which are going on in a very autonomous manner. So what happens? Where does these dream objects this dream experience, which Prashnopanishad again says, he says, the if he has good memories, he'll see good dreams, whatever he has heard before. And mind you, it is not just this life. That is the mistake that we make. There are sometimes unimaginable dream objects that we experience in dream. And the thing is, the connections go haywire. I mean, suddenly the emotion, if you had many fearful experiences while you were waking, and some cognitive experience of some previous life just gets connected in a very, very random manner, because you are practically not in control of your own thoughts. You're in the subtle world. There is very little control. Though there, if you see, there is a whole dream world which is as real as the waking world. So, but we do not understand those connections as we understand the waking world. Even in the waking world, if we are not fully conscious, many of the things that we do, and we say we inadvertently did these things because we were absent minded. 90% of the time, we are not fully conscious of, fully awake when we do our actions. Many of our actions have become so autonomous, even some of the actions we do it. We see, we eyes are open, many things are there, but our mind is somewhere else. So the important point that this Prashnopanishad makes is that unless the mind is connected, unless your attention is directed towards the experience, eyes may see, but you will not register. It's like daydreaming. When you daydream, you go into another world even while you are still awake. You may see everything as you had seen before, but it doesn't create the same impact, because the necessary emotion, or the necessary emotion that goes on to make the samskara, is absent. So if you, that is why they say in the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, that you should have an attitude of a sakshi, witness. Just don't allow the emotions and the thoughts and the experiences to attach to each other. You may say they hook to that experience. You see something, and the moment the fear, the emotion of fear, or extreme like raga, or extreme dislike, dvesha, gets hooked to that thought, that experience, immediately it forms a deep samskara. This is one of the greatest secrets, how to live our life in the waking state, so that we can slowly improve our dream experience and not get agitated, because it is very difficult to control our own dreams. It's very much more easier to control our waking state. So that is why most of these meditation techniques, especially Vipassana and other Buddhist techniques, Buddha gave a lot of importance to uh, practice alertness. He said, whatever you do, irrespective of what you are doing, do it with full alertness. If that absent-minded nature is practiced in our waking state, and we are not fully aware, then most of these experiences uh, result in nightmarish dreams, or dreams which are not under our control. And that's why we have nightmares. But it's not that many people even try to read or try to judge the future by the dreams they have. To some extent, there may be some hints which give you some kind of hint what is likely to happen in the future, but they are all not scientifical. At least Vedanta doesn't accept it. The dreams do not, just as they consider the waking state, if the time that you spend experiencing or in cognizing the world around you in a very conscious manner, that alone will result in spiritual development. That's the idea. So you have to be absolutely alert during the waking state if you do not want the random connection between the emotions and the objects, dream objects, and the dream situations that you are experiencing in the dream world. It's not true that it's definitely not an easy task to control your dreams. No matter how much you try, even the most spiritual person will have dreams. But the dreams, the quality of the dreams will change. That is what, according to Prashnopanishad, the sage Pipalada, the expounder of Prashnopanishad, because Prashnopanishad is a beautiful Upanishad which discusses reality through dream, the different waking, dream, and deep sleep states. You see, all these Upanishads have some speciality. Either they will, Taittiriya Upanishad, for example, they develop the idea of koshas, the external kosha, the subtle, the gross body, Annamaya kosha, which is made of food, which grows, which is nourished by food, by which can be felt. It is a gross material body. Then they say there is another kosha, the five koshas, or the three bodies. There are two ways to classify human personality. The second is the pranamaya kosha, the different life forces like digestion, heartbeat, blood circulation. Most of these forces are always in action. Otherwise, the body is dead. If the forces, the prana leaves the body is dead. So Annamaya kosha depends on the pranamaya kosha. Then they uh, classify the third type of body as the manomaya kosha, the mind which, in coordination with the sense organs, observes things, reacts to things, which is also, that is why manas is known by the word reactive mind. There are two minds. There is a Vijnanamaya kosha, which is a discriminative or a decisive mind, a mind which can take decisions, which can make choices. So you have to make this distinction clear, because the reactive mind is more intimately connected to the body and the prana forces. Like, for example, all animals, the moment they see a fearful object, they either run away or try to fight it, try to resist it. So it's just a action and reaction that takes place. So that mind is not a very highly developed mind. The manas, the manomaya kosha, according to the Vedanta, is a primitive sort of mind which enables us to experience the world. Whereas if you want to make sense of that experience and choose how to react or how not to react, which is known as buddhi. The buddhi is the prerogative, or the that is what Vijnanamaya kosha is. So when you reach that level, according to this manomaya kosha and the Vijnanamaya kosha are both constituents of the dream state. They are constituent of the subtle body, which is manifest in the dream state. So the subtle body becomes active because there the physical body, for the time being, is subdued. The physical body, things are not being seen by the eye, and you are just playing with the memories of the past waking impressions. Some of them are very deep rooted, that's why they appear again and again. Some fears are so deep rooted that you always, for example, some of the people say that they, even after 20, 30 years, that fear of exams, I'm giving a very simple example. You suddenly dream that you have an exam tomorrow. The reason may be that there were so many exams we had to face, and there was lot of fear connected with those experiences when we were. So these multiple experiences increase the possibility of those. There may not be any exam, but you will create an imaginary situation where you are appearing for an exam, and suddenly that old fear gets connected to that. And then you wake up, you find that, oh, you have already qualified and there are no more exams in your life. But still, they persist. They persist because the deep rooted fear, that hatred or fear towards examinations, something which you don't like, and that has been creating so many you may say bad experience in the waking state, that they remain in a very dormant state, and they come when they get the right, I mean, when uh, the physical body is no more active, the waking experiences are subdued, then the dream experiences become more prominent. So but then Just as we have the seat of waking experience as the Annamaya Kosha or the gross body. So, as I said, the mind is divided into two, Manomaya Kosha and Vijnanamaya Kosha. You have to understand the subtle difference. Manomaya Kosha is shared by us with animals. So, even animals have a reactive mind, some sort of rudimentary mind where we immediately react. We don't think. Whereas if you pause, think, discriminate, then it becomes buddhi. So the more the buddhi is developed, you may say that personality is the human personality is living in a world where he can choose not only what he will do in the waking state, but gradually it impacts the dream state. That is why as you grow spiritually, they say you are more and more in control of your dream state. Not that you can wish and dream what you like. Dreams will still be random because we are not in control. We are uh, not able to control that. The thoughts just randomly arise, just as it randomly arises in the waking state also. But one has more control over the thoughts in the waking state. We can decide that I will now sit and meditate. I will not allow the negative thoughts to come. But in dream, the will becomes very weak. The As I said, the will is also another emotion, thinking, feeling, and willing. So will, when it gets attached, when you use the will properly, you explore all the physical possibilities and mental possibilities like skill development. Even to exercise, even to have a healthy body, you need to exercise the will. So just as the brain has or the mind has a thinking capacity, it has the capacity to feel. So thinking correctly, feeling correctly, and also willing correctly. These three are the main functions of the both the reactive mind as well as the buddhi. Buddhi, of course, according to Vedanta, it is only when the buddhi is awakened, the higher possibilities of the human personality you start exploring. In fact, the spiritual life does not begin before that faculty has been awakened. So that is why Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata. This is such an important prayer, such a, you may say, wonderful discovery made by our rishis and the Upanishads, the Vedas, that they understood the importance of this buddhi, the higher mind, which makes us separates us from the animal mind or uh, primitive mind. Primitive mind was very good. They were also highly reactive. They could understand, they could sense trouble, and they had a very highly skilled Annamaya Kosha and the Pranamaya Kosha. They, in fact, they they act better than us. Most of the animals, they are very sharp. Their sense organs are sharper than us. They can anticipate danger. But that is only at the level of Manomaya Kosha. Whereas, how to react, what to make of your life, how to make the right decision, the right choice at the right time. This starts, it begins with the development of the Vijnanamaya Kosha. So now we come to this is as far as the subtle body is concerned. The subtle body plays between the reactive mind, to some extent, the senses which sensory experiences which you had. Of course, prana also plays a role there. If, say, for example, they say when your body is very tired or when you're very exhausted or when you have a lot of bad experiences in the waking state, it is more likely that you will have such dreams, nightmares, and other things because the prana has been disturbed. The body may be very quiet, the body may not be active, but the prana is active and that impacts the mind. You see, Manomaya Kosha and Pranamaya Kosha impact each other. That is why a well-controlled prana through pranayama and other pranayama is not just breath control, it is control of all the five pranas in our body. So there are various ways how you can control it. Physically, you can control it. Breathing is the easiest way to control one of the pranas so that other pranas are controlled. But at the same time, and that depends a lot on nutrition and other things. If you are not able to breathe properly because of some physical disability, now definitely your pranas will be imbalanced, and that will agitate the mind. On one side, it agitates the uh, mind, which is reactive mind, the manas. On the other side, it impacts the body. So you have the psychosomatic diseases and all those things. So it is the prana which is like sandwiched between these two layers. It, on one side it impacts the body, but once we go to the subtle body, it is the mind which is in control, the lower mind as well as higher mind. Vijnanamay kosha is definitely something which will decide how strong, how good, and how beneficial your dream experience will be. So that is why this Prashnopanishad, which deals a lot, they have explored all the possibilities of the dream, deep sleep, waking, dream, and deep sleep state. And through that analysis, they are trying to understand all the human possibilities one can explore till one attains to realization. So, the causal body, now you come to the Upanishadic experience or Upanishadic concept of what causal body is there. If you ask any of the Western physiologists or even philosophers, they don't have this concept of causal body. Either the body and the mind, that's bipartite. Whereas our in Hindu philosophy or Vedanta philosophy, our human personality is tripartite: subtle, sthula, that is gross, subtle, and causal. This idea of causal body itself is a great discovery. So, how do we explain what is this causal body? What is its function? Subtle body we understand. It's the seat of our dream experiences. So we can't wish away. We can't wish away the dream experience. Almost, if not one third, but a major portion of our existence for 24 hours, if you see, waking state may be more, but daydreaming or dreaming while you are sleeping, these dream experiences are also very significant in our life. You can't just ignore them. That's why the Upanishad says, but they go further and they found the existence of a causal body. So they found that if the tripartite concept, division of the body, according to the Western philosophy or theology, they say body and mind. That's all. And they may say the soul, but by soul they mean most of them mean the mind. And they don't have this subtle classification as the reactive mind, manas, and the discriminatory or the choice making mind, which is known as buddhi, wisdom. It is distinguished very clearly. It is distinguished. In fact, spiritual life is not possible without the awakening of buddhi. That's why in the Gayatri Mantra, Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata, the child is supposed to go on repeating till he graduates from a just reactive mind which he was born with, and his experiences of life, how to deal with the different experiences, how to react, how not to react, when to react, that all involves the buddhi. So buddhi is the first thing that gets developed when one practices, does undergo spiritual training, and then so many new possibilities are explored, are we start exploring the new possibilities. But Vedanta even doesn't stop there. Suppose you have a highly developed mind or buddhi, and you are very wise, very mature, very wise person. You can be a very wise person. But unless you control the causal body is something which is recognized by Vedanta as another layer of our personality which explores still higher possibilities. So, coming back to the two states that we discussed now, gross body is the seat of our waking experience, Annamaya Kosha and the Pranamaya Kosha. Then the subtle body, that is Manomaya Kosha, and the Vijnanamaya Kosha is the experience of our dream experience, is what gives rise to a dream world and a dream body. So causal body is the seat of deep sleep experience. So maybe when we actually go to sleep, if the modern methods of measuring the different alpha, theta waves and other things can predict how much of our sleep was a dream experience and how much was deep sleep. Absolute no thoughts, everything came to a standstill. That deep sleep experience for most of us, for most of the agitated minds, is very less. The quality of sleep depends on how much of deep sleep you have in a particular period. If you sleep for 10 hours and there are so many dreams come and agitate our personality, then you don't feel refreshed. It is only the quantity of deep sleep that determines how much rest you will have. So, what are the qualities or what are the conditions and what is the nature of our causal body? That is the topic of discussion. So, first point is the Upanishad says the experience of deep sleep. See, they went so deep into this human experiences, waking, dream, and deep sleep. By analysis of these three states, it's a very scientific approach to religion, Vedanta and the science. That's why our topic is Vedanta and the science of human possibilities. Nothing, you don't have to believe in anything. The Upanishads will give you some ideas, but then you have to meditate upon them and find out if they are logical. They start with all the experiences that a human being experiences in his life. Waking experience, nobody can deny it. Dream experiences, every day we experience it. And they came to the conclusion that human being needs deep sleep, at least for some time, otherwise he'll go mad. Because sleeplessness is a very insomnia or whatever you may call it, is not a very good thing for most of us. So no matter how nice your dreams are, but still the body yearns for deep sleep. So what happens during deep sleep? The causal body, they they say there is an existence of another subtle layer of our personality, which is known as the causal body, and that is the seat of deep sleep experience. This is point number one. The next point is in profound dreamless sleep, I mean deep sleep, dreamless sleep, because deep sleep can be defined as that sleep. Even dreamless sleep is also sleep, but you dream. There is no physical action, but at the same time, no mental actions also. All mental dream world also vanishes. Dream emotions also vanish. And you just have no thought, no feeling, no imagination, no memory of any kind. The only memory that lives, that's something which is very significant, is that the only memory that you have of your deep sleep or dreamless deep state is when you wake up. You get a feeling there is somebody who is watching that deep sleep state, and you can yourself tell. Nobody else can tell whether you had a dreamless sleep, or how much of dreams you had. Though you may not remember, many of us do not remember our dream experiences. Many of the experiences, just as we do not take note of all the waking experiences also. It may be a surprise to most of us that many of the waking experiences, they just happen and we just forget them. Some experiences remain with us. Maybe they go deep within our unconscious mind, inside our unconscious mind, and then appear again as, may not be immediately, but some kind of random dream experience takes place. But even that thought, no feeling, no, because in dream you have a thought or you have a situation where a feeling or imagination of course runs wild in the uh, dream state. Of course, in waking state also, the people, that's why we have coined that word daydreaming. We can use our imagination even when a person is waking. If he is always imaginative, for example, if he sees uh, some object somewhere in the dark, he will imagine it is a ghost, though the ghost may not be there or nothing may be there. So imagination is present even in the waking state, but more so in the dream state. So they say in this causal state, or in this deep sleep state or dreamless sleep state, there is no hope, no fear, no love, no hate. This is taken from the Upanishad. The ceaseless fluctuation of the mind that you experience both in the waking as well as dream state stops. It gives way to utter stillness. Its ideas, its tendencies, merits, demerits, everything becomes totally passive and uniform. You have a uniform deep sleep experience. And that, of course, you'll come to that fifth kosha, as I said, Annamay kosha, Pranamay kosha, Manomay kosha, Vijnanamay kosha. There's one more kosha, which is the innermost core, according to Taittiriya Upanishad, that is Anandamay kosha. That's why the deep sleep is such a joyful thing. Of course, it is definitely below the realization in the waking state, but at least in our three states, among the three states, the most joyful state is the deep sleep state. Because there may be the situation may be the mind will be very passive, they're uniform. They say just as a tree exists, there are so many examples they have given. Vedanta Paribhasha is another text based on the Upanishads, which explains, he says it is just like a seed which has not, it's still in seed form, it has not germinated or it is not growing to become a big tree. It is still in seed form, but that doesn't mean it does not exist. So in the causal state, you have all the old memories, samskaras, which have the potential to come out as dream and waking experiences. None of them is lost. Just because you are in a deep sleep state and the world vanishes for all practical purposes, that doesn't mean we are realized. We are free from the bondage. All the tendencies, good and bad, all the samskaras, the subtle impressions, tainted with different emotions in the waking state, in the dream states also create some kind of karma, or it because you see, you can't just ignore. That's why Sigmund Freud and all those people, they gave so much importance to dream. They would analyze the dreams and tell you what is your past, what is your problem, what are you suffering from. They overdid it. I mean, the dream experiences were taken very seriously, and they tried to find out why a deceased mind has different kinds of dreams. So the dream experience, definitely neither the Western psychology nor the Eastern yoga psychology has ignored. But of course, they have given it much less importance than the waking state. And they say all the progress that we make, or all the spiritual development that takes place, all our samskaras can be undone, can be cancelled, or can be modified only in the waking state. So dream state, though it will give rise to some small karma, it's negligible. You may say its impact on our personalities, even if you have the worst dreams for several days, it will not accrue much karma as you would do if you do the same thing in a waking state. Waking or conscious experiences have a far greater impact than the dream, but you cannot wish away the dream state. They will still there. They will be there to haunt us. They will be there to have a positive or a negative. Good dreams, I'm not just talking of the nightmares. Some of the good dreams have changed lives. Great discoveries sometimes where a lot of thinking has gone beyond, and suddenly the Benzian ring which Kekule had, he was a scientist, suddenly got the solutions in a dream state. So it's not always that the dream state is bad. Sometimes it can lead to a lot of positive things or positive events after that. But at the same time, its impact on creating new samskara, merit, demerit, papa, punya, that is what Vedanta Paribhasha says, they are possible more in the waking state than the dream state. So what happens is, Vedanta Paribhasha says, merit, demerit, past and latent impressions, they remain in their causal form. Causal, the word, Sanskrit word is Karana Sharira. You have Sthula Sharira, gross body, Sukshma Sharira, the subtle body, the subtle experiences, which predominantly dream experiences, they are part of the subtle body. Whereas, though the mind functions, the gross body is normally uh, dealing with the waking state. And in the dream state, you are dealing with the mainly with the subtle body. Though in both the cases, the gross and it continues to be present there, though it's not very active. For example, the body has to function. Even in a dream state, you can't imagine that your all the functions of the body will stop. They continue, but their importance is relegated to a lower. They're less important in the dream state. The dream world, the dream object, the whole world becomes so real for the in that dream experience that at that time you think it is absolutely real. Otherwise, how will you, when you get up, when somebody wakes you after a dream or you wake up yourself, you feel you take some time to even uh, come back to the senses and uh, tell that dream experience was unreal. The waking state, unless you just don't jump into a waking state. That is why they say, some of the Shastras say, if a person is sleeping, normally you should not rudely wake him up, because if he's in a dream state, it is okay. But if he's in a deep sleep state, that little joy which he, with great difficulty, he's experiencing, that you are just bringing him down to the other two states. So, the mind in the deep sleep, what happens? These are technical points in a text known as Vedanta Paribhasha, which is a compilation of the different ideas in the Upanishads. So everything is Vedanta. They say that in deep sleep, the mind as possessed of the power of cognition subsides. In dream state, the power of cognition is definitely there, though it is not as powerful as in the waking state. The power, the feelings, the fears, the likes and dislikes, everything is there. But here, the power of cognition itself is not there, but not the mind as possessed of the power of activation. Therefore, continuity of the vital process is not contradictory. That means, even in a deep sleep state, as opposed to samadhi, now we come to a very important uh, concept, the difference between deep sleep and samadhi. The bodily functions, you have to remember, they still, that's why the Vedanta Paribhasha says, continuity of the vital processes, that is our prana. Prana is still very active, just as active it was as it was in the waking state and also the dream state. May not be so much active, only the basic functions, they are vital processes. They call it vital processes. Vital means prana. Vital body is pranamaya sharira. So they are not, they just continue as they were. In fact, they function better in a deep sleep state, because there is nothing to agitate the prana. That is why you say, if you have a few nice hours of deep sleep state, your body remains healthy, healthier than experiencing dreams all the time. That not only agitates the uh, prana function, you start palpitating. I mean, when there is a fear, the heart processes, definitely it will impact the body. And because the prana is, there is an imbalance in the prana. So the continuity of the vital processes continues in a very smooth manner in a deep sleep state. So in this deep sleep state, the mind reaches, this is a very important point, the very base of the subtle body. Karana Sharira is the basis over which the subtle body and the gross body uh, play out the drama of our life. From there, the mind rises again. First, either dream, or maybe from deep sleep, you can directly come to the waking state. There is a wonderful example given. You see, these Upanishads always believed in giving examples from nature. So, in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, this waking, dreamless dream and the dreamless sleep have been described in such a beautiful way. He says, imagine there is a big fish and you are swimming in a river. The river is very narrow. So the fish doesn't have much to move. I mean, it goes on moving. He says waking state is like bumping against the left bank, say, and then you bump against the right bank. That is in dream state. So from dream to deep waking to dream, and but some uh, during during deep sleep state, it is like swimming in the uh, midstream. It's swimming in midstream. Neither you are not disturbed by this left bank or the right bank. That's the happiest state. You obviously, any boat which passes through, if it passes through the midstream, if it's not disturbed by the banks, if it doesn't keep on banging the banks, that is a very ideal state. So the Upanishad says that our whole life is nothing but it's compared to a fish, which is either bumping against the left bank or the right bank, and now and then, which is a very short period of time. If you compare the whole day, it's a very short period where we have actual dreamless deep sleep. So he says that's when you touch the causal body, which is nearest to the soul or Atma. That is why you feel joy, because the very nature of our soul is Satchidananda. So that little Ananda aspect which we experience, it's just a partial experience of that joyful state. That is how they have interpolated it. And they say, now you can imagine if deep sleep is so joyful, then how should if that state is consciously attained, the state of samadhi. Now, what is the difference between, we come back to that point. Here he says the vital processes continue. But for people like Sri Ramakrishna, and it was testified by the doctor who treated him, Mahendralal Sarkar, when he reached samadhi, which is not definitely deep sleep, it's like a conscious deep sleep, though it is not the correct way to express it. It is a state where you consciously go into this deep sleep state. In that case, the vital processes do not function as before. Maybe a very strange, but it is a scientific fact because it was experienced. That's why we need to read the biographies of these great people. And maybe Sri Ramakrishna himself wanted Mahendralal to be present. And he said, no, I don't believe. Let me just check. How can this state of samadhi? It's medically not possible. He was a MD from Calcutta Medical College. He was a very accomplished doctor and then also accomplished in homeopathy, but he was an allopathic doctor. So he goes and he says, no, I'll check. He says there's no heartbeat. You see, it's there in the gospel. He tries to measure the heartbeat, heart rate. It is absent. No breathing. Absolutely all signs, all for all practical purposes, it was a dead body in the state of samadhi. So the continuity of the vital processes, which in a subsequent chapter we'll discuss, they say after five vayus, prana, apana, samana, vyana, and udana. Prana is the breath force and the heartbeat and all those things. Vyana is the nervous energy. That also needs to be regulated. We are full of nervous energy, either excited or either very temperamental, because our nerves are always sending some reaction to the external action upon the human being. So Vyana, Samana, Prana, and except Udana. Udana is one of the pranas, which is part of the Pranamaya Sharira, which helps the Annamaya Kosha to remain warm. I mean, it's just a subtle connection, which if that connection goes away, then the person is dead. So Udana also is responsible for the body heat, the temperature. They say we will come to that chapter when we discuss in detail what this prana is. Now we are discussing the three bodies, three types of classification of the personality as the three bodies. So he says, the Upanishad says that Udana Vayu is the last to leave the body. So when that prana separates, then the gross Annamaya Kosha is totally disconnected and we say the patient is dead. But in Samadhi, this Vital processes is not contradictory, it doesn't continue. So when that was told to Dr. Sarkar, he said, let me check. Let me check. There is an incident in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. He goes, he checks the pupils, see whether they're dilating or not. None of the signs of any kind of prana, except there was a doctor, and I've told you this before. When Sri Ramakrishna entered Mahasamadhi, the Ayurvedic doctor was the only one, the famous Ayurvedic doctor who used to treat Sri Ramakrishna. He was treated by all, allopathic, homeopathic, and Ayurvedic. So that Ayurvedic doctor, he had a technique to find out if it is samadhi or death. He just used to touch the top of the head and he used to feel some heat, to use some kind of ghee or some butter and apply it. And then he had his own way of measuring the temperature there with the hand. And he said, no, 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 he's in samadhi, he will come back. Whereas when his Mahasamadhi took place, he was the one who declared, because people were afraid whether it is samadhi, because this they have seen so many times in his life. When the body has gone voluntarily into a causal state, and the last bit of prana that is connected to the body, which is Udana Vayu, that which is responsible for maintaining the bodily heat at a particular temperature, no matter what the environmental temperature is, the body has to maintain the temperature. That is the function of Udana Vayu. So as long as, apart from that, in a deep sleep state, all functions are continuing as before. Whatever the state of that person when he was in waking state, in a dream state, of course that depends. In the dream state, if he had a very bad nightmare, his blood pressure would have gone up. The same thing happens in the waking state also. Good experiences, calming experiences will control some of the prana. Not all the pranas, but some of the pranas. And bad experiences will cause problems. But in samadhi, in the state of samadhi, except for Udana, which has no role to play other than connect the body and the vital forces together, and the mind and the rest of the human personality together. That is why they say, when he checked all the parameters except the slight heat which was found by the Ayurvedic doctor. Of course, I don't think there was anything in allopathy to suggest that he was alive. So any other doctor would have simply, if the samadhi continued for a long time, how can you not pronounce a person as dead? Though they say brain dead and there's so many definitions of death, but still, medical, at least it was a great surprise to Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar, who actually went and examined. It's not that he was curious to know. These people are making such a big fuss about his samadhi. He went there as a doctor. He went there as a doctor, not that he was interested. In fact, he was an atheist. But he somehow loved Sri Ramakrishna because of his wonderful childlike nature. So he used to go. Then he said, these people are spoiling his head by calling him as a guru and all those things. So he decided to test. Said, let me scientifically find out if what they say, what the yogis say, is true. So it was a live demonstration of the fact that the difference between deep sleep and the state of samadhi, which is totally different. They say, once Swami Vivekananda was asked, everything is similar in deep sleep and but then Swami Vivekananda said, if a fool goes into deep sleep and comes back, he comes back as a fool. Whereas if a realized person goes into samadhi, doesn't come back as a fool. He comes back as an enlightened person, because all his samskaras, all the potential impressions, the samskaras, they have been destroyed. Whereas, mind you, here he says nothing, all the potential samskaras are for the time being in potential form, they are in seed form, but they don't vanish. That is known as the Karana Sharira. So this is a very important point to remember. The function of Karana Sharira, unlike the Sukshma Sharira, the subtle body and the gross body, is to, it's just like that of a seed. Karana means cause. Karana means the causal body. So what can cause creation to arise? It's the seed. As long as the seed is there and as long as you give it the right environment, you can create things from that dormant powers inherent within the seed. Nothing is manifest when you see the seed. Only when it uh, germinates and then grows into a big tree, then you understand how much power was there. So that is why he says, in the deep sleep, the Karana Sharira, the causal body, the the very base of the subtle body. We transcend the subtle body and go into the Karana Sharira. And from there, the mind rises again. It doesn't vanish. If it had vanished, if it was Mahasamadhi, then it would not come back. But it rises again in the waking state and the dream state alternately. So a person in deep sleep, even the ego, which is always ready to assert itself. See, both in the waking state and the dream state, your ego is still very active. The person who sees the dream gets disturbed by the nightmare or the dream, or he feels happy. Sometimes you feel happy. Who is feeling that? So, even in the waking state, our ego is the primary reason why we react differently to different things. So, he says that ego also has temporarily, in the Karana Sharira, goes into the pure consciousness. And what happens? He does not know. The Upanishad says, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Atra pita apita bhavati, mata amata bhavati, loka aloka bhavati, deva adeva bhavati. That is how they express. Just to emphasize again and again, they could have just said the world does not remain the same. He does not know. He means that person who is in deep sleep doesn't know whether he's a man or a woman, whether he's young or old, whether he's a teacher or a pupil, whether he's a farmer or a king, whether he's a saint or a sinner. That is how Brihadaranyaka Upanishad explains. Now, what is the nature of this Karana Sharira? This is, we'll conclude with that. 5 minutes extra. So, the causal body is of the nature of unspecified ignorance and emits bliss. So, it has a function, just as we saw, the Sthula Sharira has a particular function. Our physical actions, taking in impressions, and reacting to it with the help of our life forces or prana. That is the function of the Sthula Sharira. Sukshma Sharira is to witness the dream experiences. You may not be able to work out your karma, but at least you get a hint in the dream experience. Though I do not fully agree that we should read so much into our dream experiences, because they are very often we do not remember those dream experiences. First of all, in a sequence, we do not know what we have been dreaming. Some dreams you remember only because you have been suddenly, you have woken up, or maybe they're fresh in your memory when you wake up, but you can't recollect. Of course, you can't recollect all your waking experiences also. Though we say we remember everything, we don't remember what we did when we were 10 years old, or when we were small children. We don't remember. Similarly, dreams also, it is impossible, but dream is short-lived because you forget it sooner than our waking experiences. Even though, but some dreams, as I said, which are either very good dreams or very bad dreams, it is very difficult to forget. So now, what happens when the self enters the causal body, the Karana Sharira? The experiencer, these are the words of the Upanishads. For simplicity, I'll just explain in English. He comes across a blank wall. That is how they say. He comes, his waking and dream experiences were making him shuttle between good, bad, different types of experiences. But suddenly, in deep sleep, he faces a blank wall, as it were. He is in a state of, this is very important. This is the difference between sleep and samadhi. He is in a state of complete inapprehension or ignorance. Ignorance doesn't go. It's only when you enter into samadhi, you are enlightened. All he is aware of at that point of time when he is in deep sleep is unspecified ignorance. There's not a particular ignorance. You may say, I am ignorant of the laws of mathematics, I'm ignorant of what food to take, what food not to take. These are specific ignorances, but unspecified ignorance. You simply don't know. You reach a state. So that is why he says when a person wakes up from deep sleep, he says, I slept happily. That's the only thing he remembers. I did not know anything. Even that he remembers. You see, when he suddenly, if somebody has a very deep sleep, he's so happy when he gets up. He said, I almost forgot. Whereas the dreams he will still remember. But there's nothing to remember because there was nothing going on in deep sleep. And this is a fact of universal experience. So Upanishads analyze the causal state and say that it is important to understand the deep sleep state and not just say that there are only two states, waking and sleep, that is dream. There is this deep sleep which they have totally disconnected from our dream state experience. So he says in that state what happens? He says it's a universal experience. It shows that in deep sleep a person does not actually lose consciousness. This is another important point. We might think he's unconscious. No, he's fully conscious, but he's conscious of only one idea, that I am sleeping happily. That is the only memory he has when he gets up. He stays the cognizer of the causal body. He may not have the dream body because there is no dream. He does not feel or does not experience the waking body or the gross body because he is not aware of it. And this particular thing, which is of the nature of ignorance, which is known as avidya or ajnana, without affecting his pure consciousness, self-luminosity. So no matter what good or bad waking experiences you have, good or bad dream experiences you have, and the length of your causal experience, the eternal nature, that is self-luminosity and blissfulness, is something which persists. The only thing that persists, even in a karana sharira or in the subtle, in the causal body, is this idea of bliss. And that bliss is only because there are no thoughts. Patanjali, the whole yoga system was developed because of that. And Buddha, in fact, says, I don't want to discuss anything about God. That's why they call him a Nastika religion. He was asked whether there is God. He said, did I say there is God? Then they said, okay, that means you don't accept the idea of God. He said, did I say there is no God? The idea was that there is no reason to spend our time. You just find out what gives you peace. The cessation of thoughts. So just by analyzing the deep sleep experience, the Prashna Upanishad is such a small Upanishad, but just by analyzing the nature of the human personality in deep sleep, they say if you extend it further, the nature of the self is pure consciousness, pure awareness, and pure happiness or pure joy or bliss. So that is why the David Bentley Hart, he wrote a wonderful book. He was a theologian, comparative theology. So he was asked, what is the best definition of reality or God you can give? He said, see, I have studied in depth all the religions, but finally he came to the conclusion that the only possible common explanation given by all religions is that the soul is eternal or Sat. He uses the word Sat, Chit and Ananda, which we say casually without understanding what it is. But David Bentley Hart says, if I study any scripture, I come to the general conclusion that the nature of God or reality, whether you call it God or reality, is Sat, eternal existence. If it is temporary, then it is not God. Eternal Sat, that is truth or Sat. Chit is eternal consciousness. A consciousness which is not lost in the waking state, which is not lost in the dream state. We are conscious of the dream. And even in deep sleep, that is the only thing that remains in the deep sleep state also. So then they say, because this consciousness is always constant throughout, we must be, the very nature of our personality is consciousness. So consciousness, Sat, Chit, and finally he says bliss, which is also the nature of a causal body. That is why Upanishad says that is the state where every one of us wants to stay. But unfortunately, we can't choose how long we'll be in deep sleep. You see, that's why we get irritated if somebody, when we have a very good sleep and somebody rudely wakes us, because we feel that we have come back to a painful world which we were enjoying with so much of joy. So he says, the Upanishad says that though he is not aware of anything else, but he is aware of the innate bliss. That's why when he gets up, Shankaracharya says, he says, I slept happily. How did he know he slept happily? He was not aware of anything, only happiness. So that is our true nature. Sat, Chit, and Ananda. So, analyzing all the different religions, David Bentley Hart says the best definition of God is existence, that is, eternal existence, eternal consciousness, which does not change, and eternal bliss. So he says, better than this definition, you can't have a better, though this is not a complete definition of God. God cannot be defined, but if at all you have to give three qualities which are common to all religions, it is existence, knowledge, and bliss. Okay. So now there is the impact of gunas on deep sleep state, and all. We'll come to that later. Because that is, we come to Shankara's commentary on this. So he tries to tell us what is the nature of that avidya. There is ignorance, but it is a blissful ignorance. That is why they say, you are blissfully ignorant. If you don't involve yourself in a lot of problems, you are blissfully ignorant of many things. The more you know, the more your mind is agitated, the more trouble you have. Whereas the word, though it may be contradictory, how can you be blissful and at the same time ignorant? Yes, it is true. Because in causal state or in the Karana Sharira, we are blissfully aware of the problems of the world. But it is a temporary state. That is why you should not compare this deep sleep with samadhi. Buddha and all say nirvana is something where you consciously enter into that deep sleep state and remove all the ignorance connected with. So removal of ignorance, avidya, is an important thing, because if you are blissfully ignorant, you are still ignorant. You may be blissful, but that does not last long. That's the idea. So if there are some questions.
A lot of pressure is there to exercise and keep the body fit, you know, so that we can use it for spiritual practices. Now the question is, when you have a leisure time, it's hard to balance and pay attention. Either we should do exercise to keep body fit or do sadhana, which should prioritize.
Which should be a priority. Yes.
Keep the body
Yeah,
fit.
there is a golden rule. Of course, exercise is definitely necessary. When we are at the Annamaya Kosha level, definitely exercises help. But if we have really raised ourselves to the Karana Sharira or even the subtle, then I think the mind, a happy mind, will automatically result in a happy body. So I think that is a better way. But many people, at least there are many ailments, many problems, because we are very gross. So they have to be handled. We can't just wait for the mind to reach that state where you are independent of physical suffering, pain, and other things, which great people, they did not care. They did not care because they could raise their mind to that level. But for us, a balanced approach is better. The question was, which should be a priority in our life, to keep our body fit or to keep our mind fit? Obviously, the more subtle aspects of our personality control the grosser aspects. That is also a thumb rule. The more subtle, the mind is subtle. So if you take care of the mind, automatically the mind will help you to take care of the body. Though it may not necessarily be that you are very keen to keep the body in a very fit condition, because your priorities are different. Like Swami Vivekananda, for example, lived only for 40 years. That doesn't mean, but he had a priority in life where he wanted to realize before the body fell. So whether he had lived for 80 years or 100 years, I think it would not have made any difference to him. So priority depends on what the goal is. If Annamaya Kosha is the goal, if physical fitness is the goal, then very,
The body should actually do sadhana.
yeah, that is there. But then if you are too much of obsession is there, then you get stuck at the body. That is why Hatha Yoga in Raj Yoga, Swami Vivekananda, uh, the one who is asking the question, has asked that a fit body helps you to do more spiritual practice. If that is the goal, then it is definitely necessary. But then how much time you have to spend on that, it depends on you. In Raj Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Pranayama, Asana, the first four steps, three steps, Patanjali, though he gives a lot of importance to that, Yama, Niyama, right living. In fact, Buddha gave more importance, because he says without right living, without cultivation of good thoughts, without, he does not, of course, discuss pranayama. This is a technique in the yoga school, but still, control of the mind and all those things are steps which will help us in our quest. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.